Welcome back to The Last Safe Space, the data-driven podcast from Music Venue Trust. I'm here with the actual host of the podcast, which is Toni Cobrooker. And we're here to discuss this.
The annual report.
The new annual report from Music Venue Trust, which came out yesterday, I think.
Mm-hmm. So today's
this is the first run-through of it.
Yeah, I mean, this episode's a really special one. You know, we're marking the release of our annual report for 2025. This is the episode where we're going to slow the headlines down and we're going to talk really honestly about what this year's figures really tell us and about the state of grassroots music venues across the UK. And this is not retrospective, you know, it's a snapshot of a sector under pressure, a sector stabilising in some places, but a sector standing right at the edge of long-term structural change, which is exciting. So to walk us through it, you know, obviously you've got Mark here again, our CEO. Mark, welcome back. Thank you for doing the intro. I was stumbling over my own words, which always seems to happen. But we're going to get right into the nitty-gritty about what this report represents. And before we get into the numbers, let's start with a bigger picture. So this report is landing at a really important moment. It's after years of contraction, of crisis response and firefighting. And 2025 feels like it has a brand new tone. And that tone is one of hope, which is the best thing that could possibly be happening, to be honest, after the last few years. What does this report represent to you compared to the last few years?
Well, we touched on this in the last podcast. I think we are at a turning moment. It's not going to be easy. I'm not pretending that all the work is done and we all just sit back and have a roller coaster ride of happiness through 2026. But this is the report of what happened in 2025. It's less doomy and gloomy than any of the previous annual reports that we've been putting out since 2020, and we started doing surveys in 2017. This one is the one with the least bad numbers. They're still not good enough, but you can see, if you go through the whole thing, you can see changes starting to happen, things gradually improving. There's just a lot of stuff going on, and this defines the remaining things we've got to conquer. And those are about financial investment. Let's not get away from that. But they are also things like business rates and the VAT on tickets and some more changes to the planning laws. And there's a real way forward from this report. I think we should go through the figures.
Yeah.
Because I want people to understand, and I really want people to go to our website, get a copy of this report, send it to your local council, send it to your local MP, send it to everybody that you can think of. If you work in the music industry, you've got to read this so that you can understand where Music Venue Trust is campaigning, what difference we've had, and why we need to do it. So there's opportunities in here for everybody that really cares about live music and cares about grassroots, cares about music in our communities. Everybody needs to read this report. It's on our website now.
So let's talk scale and just get into the numbers. So there's 801 grassroots music venues operating across the UK. That's down slightly from last year, but it's the slowest rate of decline since 2018, which is big. So can you talk us through what that actually means in real terms?
Yeah, it's the smallest it's the smallest declining trading venues. And just quickly, let's pause on that. We always talk about the number of trading venues. Anybody doesn't realize we're not obsessed with bricks and mortar. We're obsessed with islands of opportunity for live music to happen. That's what we care about. If every music venue that's currently trading closed down, that would obviously be a disaster. But if 1,000 new ones opened, you'd say, oh, okay, so like a shifting, tumbling sand. And that's obviously not going to happen. But so within that figure of only 9 less venues, so that's I think it's about just under 1%. Or just over 1% have closed down this year. That's really small compared to 2023, 2024, 2022. It's the lowest number for years. So that's sort of positive. Although I'm going to say again, I'm afraid one less trading venue is too many. We need more trading venues, not less. And in the last podcast, we talked about in January 2020, when I was able to say there was more trading venues than the year before. I need to be able to say that for the next 10 years. every January I should stand up and say, until we're back at around about 1,200, 1,300, 1,400 venues, we're not servicing all the communities that want live music central to their community life. We need to be opening venues. Now, in these figures, there were 801 trading venues, but that actually meant 30 venues closed down entirely. The business shut. The building's now empty. A further 48 venues stopped doing live music. So we're already looking there at 78 less venues that actually, from last year, within the 810 last, there was 78 less. But in that year, partly driven by the kind of hope and optimism that we talked about, partly driven by demand, 69 places started putting live music on again. Very, very few, no more than one or two brand new venues opened. But venues were brought back online, or a venue in the town closed and one that used to be a venue opened. So actually the net loss is only 9. 9 is too many. I want to see back above 810 in 12 months' time. But that's a good positive start. You know, it's negative, but it's more positive than it has been.
So, you know, considering the provision for original music, those 801 venues delivered over 174,000 events, and they reached 21.6 million audience visits and supported more than 1 million individual artist performances. So culturally and economically, the sector is still incredibly active, even while the margins are razor thin.
Number of shows, up.
Yeah.
Number of people going, up. Number of artists performing, slightly down. Now, that could be to do with the number of people on stage, like the type of artists that are out there. It's more likely, in our experience, venues being forced to not put the same number of bands on every night, or be open less often for that particular type of. So we're not seeing many nights where there are 20 musicians on stage, because musicians can't afford it and the venue can't afford it. I think that the number of when we say individual performances, means how many individual musicians got to be on the stage in a grassroots music venue in a year. Over 1 million, great. But it was something like 1.2 or 1.3 million last year. So that's the number that's down. Number of shows, up. Audience numbers, up. Don't let anybody tell you that live music is not popular in this country. It's rising in popularity everywhere, including in the grassroots.
And, you know, we have to get into the finances of it, don't we? Because there's a lot of financial contradictions going on. You know, the turnover across the sector rose from 558 million. Audience numbers covered and ticket prices stayed relatively stable, but the average profit margin still remains at 2.5%, which is just mental.
It's 0.48%. So it's now 2.5%. I mean, to be honest, anybody who's actually run a business will tell you that's still not a profit margin.
No.
And also within our sector, I should say, the thing that our team does understand is we actually understand how the venues run. I need to tell people, more than a third of the venues in the country, the venue operator does not pay themselves a wage anymore.
I mean, that's terrible, isn't it?
And half of those venue operators are using money from their what they call their second jobs, because of how much they care about the venue. They're using money from their real jobs, because that's what it actually is. That's what they get paid for. They're using money from that to keep the venue open. That's unsustainable. That 2.5% profit margin, it includes the venues in which the owner, the operator, pays themselves only from the profit. So what we're saying is the wages being paid to venue operators are absolutely in the toilet right now, and they've got to go up. So this is not, when it says 2.5% profit, that's venue operators telling you a really positive message about the event. I didn't lose money this year. Didn't pay myself.
Yeah.
But I didn't lose money.
Also, over half of the venues made no profit at all in the last year.
53% actually made no profit.
Yeah. It's not good.
No.
You know, and, you know, when you isolate live music specifically even, venues are still subsidising it to the tune of 76.6 million across the sector.
Yeah. And they subsidise it by selling alcohol mainly, but also food. And these days, increasingly, listen, these are not just spaces in which live music happens. That's what our team is really driven by. But they are putting on more comedy. They're putting on more other spoken word. They're even putting on theatre, dance, exhibitions. They're doing whatever they can to raise money that they then pile behind grassroots artists. £76 million investment that wasn't raised from tickets to see live music. This is the wildest bit of all. And very difficult for people to go and see gigs to listen to. The ticket entry price is absolutely stuck at around about £11.50.
Yeah.
It was, I think it was £11.43 in 2023, £11.48 in 2024, and now I think it's about £11.52. It's not going up because actually...
Not in our sector, anyway.
Not in our sector. It's going up everywhere else. But here's my point. It's unbelievably brilliant value. It's not enough to pay the artists on stage.
No.
It's not enough to pay the sound engineer and the lighting engineer. The only way that we get paid is because there's money being made elsewhere in the business. You know, like I've been doing this a very long time. First time I ever put a show on, I literally sold tickets and paid myself. I didn't have the bar. I had to hire the hall and the PA and the security. But with the tickets, I managed to pay all the bands, pay all the sport bands, pay everybody else, and make some money myself. Nobody's doing that at this level. They haven't been doing it for 10 years now. It's longer than that for most of these venues, that it's been reliant on alcohol. And of course, we're seeing alcohol sales drop.
Yeah.
But £76 million investment in grassroots talent, it's huge. That's more than's being invested by the rest of the music industry put together in that particular sector. And that's where everything starts. And that's why we say there must be a contribution to that from the most successful bits of the industry. And I should say, starting to get there with the grassroots levy, but it's about time that we looked at streaming services. We should look at record labels, publishing. Everybody should be invested in this. Relying on the bloke who isn't paying himself, that runs a local venue, to give the artist you'll eventually turn into some relying on that guy to start your engine of success is just to do it on their own is a big mistake. No other industry works like that. So a senior executive in the live industry said to me, "Oh, you keep saying the live industry's got to support it. What about everybody else?" Yes, I agree. What about everybody else? This year is very much focused on what the live industry is doing. What's everybody else going to do now? The live industry sorts itself out. I want to see Spotify and Apple and Amazon and Tidal, all these services starting to think about how do we invest in that part of the artist's career, because it's solvable. This £76 million is a hell of a lot of money to these 801 venues. It's bugger all to Spotify.
Yeah.
It's 1/3 of the money they gave Barcelona to put their names on their shirts.
Long, hard stare into the camera from me.
That's not the podcast off to a good start, isn't it? But
well, I mean, one of the most concerning sections in the report is obviously employment, you know. So total employment across the sector fell by 20% in a single year, largely driven by increased employer national insurance contributions and reduced rates relief. You know, so what does that level of workforce reduction mean for venues day to day?
6,000, more than 6,000 people lost their jobs in grassroots music venues in the last 12 months. Everybody watching this should be completely shocked and stunned and appalled by that. If that was any other sector, it would be front page news of every newspaper in the country. 20% reduction in the workforce. And you know what's more shocking? More shocking is when you look at the demographics, you can see directly who lost their job. And who lost their job is absolutely, solidly, over 90% rooted in 18 to 25-year-olds. We are literally ripping talent out of this industry that will go off and work somewhere else because we can't afford to pay them because of the changes to NI, where so many of them were suddenly brought into NI contributions who weren't before. Because of the changes in rate relief, venues had to cut staff. Who can you cut? You can cut the trainee. You can stop investing in people's futures as lighting engineers, sound engineers, box office staff, bookers, promote. That's what you can cut. You can't cut the person who actually turns the lights on. And you can't cut the person who absolutely is in charge of the sound desk. We have to employ those people. We don't have to invest in them. It's a terrible, terrible story, because those 18 to 25-year-olds, we don't know what those people are now doing. But I doubt that they suddenly found a job in a big company, because that's not how these big companies, they work for people to be trained up and then they take them. So this is literally, do you remember that appalling advert in the middle of COVID?
Yes, I do. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Picture that ballerina where was
retraining in something else.
Now so they finally found a job, like
Farouza or something.
Yeah, they got their next job is in IT. Yeah, okay. What about if they were going to be a fantastic fucking ballerina, you dipsticks? Okay, 6,000 potential new employees for the big part of this industry in 5 or 10 years' time have left the industry. Where's your next bloody sound engineer from Glastonbury going to come from?
Yeah.
Where's your next lighting engineer for the big world tour going to come from? Because these people have left the industry. There isn't anywhere else for them to go. Everything's being cut back across the industry. This was the last remaining bit where you could walk in a venue, look at the lights and think, oh, I want to do that. Start helping out. Maybe the venue takes you on in a volunteer role. Then in a year, they're offering you some paid work. That's what's being cut.
It's also not just about nurturing young people. It's also, when you strip back, our groundbreaking grassroots sector to skeleton staff, and the people that are working are so burnt out, it's going to affect the way, culture, continues.
Put those figures together. There are more shows, more people are going, yeah?
Yeah.
And less people are working to deliver them in the background in the venues.
Yeah.
Just think about the stress that puts on people. 6,000 jobs in a year must never be repeated. I'm going to try and be nice, because we did tell people. It's not like we didn't tell government this would be the outcome. Those national insurance changes were not aimed at us. We are the accidental victims of the government, particularly Treasury, not understanding how this sector employs people, what kind of jobs people have. It wasn't, how do we strip 6,000 jobs out of this? But if you lost 20% of all the jobs in car manufacturing or whatever in a single year in this country, literally government will be stepping in with a multi-million pound package to get people back in employment. And you know what? That's what they need to do. This government now needs to do a massive apprentice and traineeship program to get those 6,000 positions back open. They literally need to invest that money back in, because it's the government that have stripped it out.
Well, if they don't invest it back in, you're going to be paying all those people to be on the dole.
Yeah, and you're going to lose the future tax revenue you would get as their careers progress.
Yeah.
It's extremely short-sighted to have done it this way. I'm not going to pick out a politician or whatever. I'm going to say there are lots of people working in finance and lots of people advising on economics. None of them have ever been in a small venue. None of them have ever tried to turn the lights on. None of them understand how much of this is about training and education and skills development and career building. That's what you're doing in these venues. From the moment you walk through the door as a customer, you start looking at everything and you get fascinated by it, and you think, first of all, of course, you want to be the bass player. That's because that looks easy, doesn't it? It's only 4 strings. It's going to be easy to do.
Holiday strings.
Yeah, it's going to be easy to do that. And I say that as somebody who did that myself. So look, but then you're going to start looking at, like I did when I was a kid. I looked at it and thought, who made that poster? Who put that band on? Who's booking this? Who's doing the lights? Who's doing the sound? How do I hire this venue? If you don't do that, if there's nowhere for somebody to start, wow, you're on a. They're all boasting at the moment about how revenues for British music are going up. Okay, well, they're not going up in 5 years' time if you've cut the base by 20% of the workforce. It's a fucking disaster. Pull your fucking act together. Thank you.
And this conversation about employment directly connects with the issue around touring as well. So the report shows that the 59% of grassroots venues now receive no significant touring activity, which is leaving huge parts of the country effectively cut off from the national touring circuit. We've spoken about this so many times, when a venue closes in a city, there are lots of other venues around, but when it closes in a rural area, it literally affects the way young people are able to access cultural activity, the way they're able to connect with people, how creative they're able to be. And it's a not just a cultural issue, it's an infrastructure failure.
It's a community issue.
Yeah.
There are 43 million people living within walking distance of a grassroots music venue. 23 million of those people didn't get to see or have the opportunity to go and see a significant national tour by a touring national act last year. 23 million. Only 20 million were being serviced. And largely they're being serviced in 32 cities. That's it. That's what the major music industry is doing now. And I'm not going to blame them for that. It's economically unviable to drive miles and miles across Scotland to get to Ayr or Inverness. I understand that, but we've got to get on top of that, because you're not telling me that an artist is going to build a career in only 32 cities, because that's what they've got, a live career now. That's what they've mainly got. We talked about that in the last podcast. That's where does there is income come? Mainly from live. Okay. If you're only servicing 32 cities, you've got a maximal. Let's reverse this. Imagine I set up a social media campaign for a new artist. I said, don't worry, I've limited your exposure to only 29.8% of the people on social media. They'd say, what the fuck have you done that for? Wouldn't they?
Yeah.
Literally, if you do marketing, if you came to me and said, hey, Mark, I've got this brilliant idea. Let's try and cut out 80% of the population, 70% of the population, make sure that they don't see our stuff. I'd tell you to go off and have a rethink. So this is me telling the music industry, you need to go off and have a rethink. 23 million people can walk to their local gig, and there's nothing except local bands or the biggest band there is locally who might be doing extra and decided to play in their home. There's literally no organised tours. 221 towns and cities did not receive significant touring artists from any national promoter. I'm going to big up the AIP, the Association of Independent Promoters, a little bit. Their members are trying to tackle this issue. In fact, when we looked at their numbers, they were slightly better than this. They were in 78 different towns. And for the first time, they were actually in some towns, because the big companies are only in cities now. They anything that happens outside a city, excuse me, is happening because the artist or the manager has a particular affinity for a place or a venue, but they're not part of the regular touring circuit anymore. This is a radical change. We're cutting off whole places, whole geography of the UK from seeing our artists of the future. It's a huge mistake. A huge mistake. How many people do you need to be exposed to before you find your core audience of 1 million people? I'm telling you, it ain't 20 million.
This feels like a really good opportunity to plug the 3 tours that we have coming up, because they are going out to some really cool towns and villages around the UK. So if you want to go onto our social media or onto our website, you'll see that we've got tours with Hot Wax, with May Stevens, and also with Omar, and they are going out to those interesting places. And, they have such amazing character about those very, very unique grassroots music venues. So please check them out. But, there is, however, a really important shift happening beneath the surface. I want to bring it back to that hope feeling. Over the 38% of grassroots venues are now operating as not-for-profit or community-owned entities, which is up significantly year on year. We know that ownership is a really central part of venue survival. And 2025 is also the year that the grassroots levy moved from campaign to policy, with government backing and the creation of the Live Trust. So we didn't see funds distributed yet, but this report makes it clear this is about long-term investment and not emergency rescue anymore. So that is positive. And if someone reads this report and takes one thing away, I think it's this. Grassroots music venues are still doing the work every day. They're still delivering culture, they're still delivering jobs and opportunity to every corner of the UK, but they cannot keep absorbing the cost of the entire ecosystem alone. And this report is the evidence. It is the line in the sand. So please, please try and pick one of these up if you can. We'll probably have a few of them in grassroots music venues. I'm sure that we'll shout about that online. But also you can just read it on our website. You can download it, send it to your MP, send it to your local representative. It's an absolutely incredible and really important read. So this feels like a really good place to leave it.
I was going to say, can I add one more thing in?
Yeah, of course you can.
You mentioned MPs, but I want to say for the first time this year, We actually have special sections in this report that are specific to Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
And all the stats and data you need in there are in there. We've amalgamated a lot of separate work we used to do into one report, so it covers all 4 nations and gives isolated reports for Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. It's really important that MSPs, MSs, representatives, all the represented departments all need to read this. So please go to our website, get a copy. You can go to writetoThem.com and you can get the name of all of your local representatives. You should be sending them a link to read this. And let's have a big campaign of making sure all of our representatives know, because we are going to start acting. Music Venue Trust is now in a position to answer some of the problems that are in here. And what we now need to do is make sure the parliaments, for our representatives, also start acting. That's the really important thing about this report. Here's the problems. In my speech to launch this report, I'm going to be talking about what the solutions are, and it's going to be really positive. It's not negative. There's loads of opportunity in here, so we need to get on top of it. And the way we get on top of it is everybody start talking about this, getting the figures out there, start talking about what the solutions are.
And I'm smiling because the things that Mark is going to announce are really, really exciting. And we will get that up and, shared immediately as well. So very lastly, I just want to say that we are on a mission to build a tribe, a community, a big band of activists that we can communicate directly, not just through social media. If you're interested in being the first to know about what we're doing, please head to our supporter circle. There'll be a lovely link in the bio below the episode where you can be the first to know about everything, all of the changes that we're supporting to happen. So please check that out. And thank you again, Mark, for joining me. This is a really exciting time for us. Please make sure you check out the report. It's a big read, and there are obviously very different challenges for the nations as well, all detailed in here. Thank you for engaging with us. Thank you for listening to this episode. We've been The Last Safe Space from Music Venue Trust, and let's keep the lights on.